Good day and welcome to the Midday International News Desk. My name is Joyce Iyakwari. Here are the headlines. Tunisian judge issues arrest warrant for ex-president Mazzarki. Lethal floods strike Indonesia's Java with mud hindering relief work. China open to talks on subsidies behind U.S. tensions, Xi says. Sudan coup leader agrees with USA to accelerate new government formation. Gambia's president declares his bid for December election. Diwali leaves India capital wheezing in dangerously unhealthy air. Iraqis face intensifying water crisis. Australia postponed its first ever Afghanistan cricket test match. And the details follows. In a report statement, Tunisia has given an international arrest notice against former President Monsef Mazzarki a month after he called on France to end support for the administration he dissolved in July. In October, President Kais Saied ordered the Justice Ministry to begin an inquiry into 76-year-old Mazzarki days after the ex-leader advised France not to support Saied's dictatorial regime. Mazzarki said in a report that he was not surprised by the arrest warrant and called it a threatening message to all Tunisians. Mazzarki has come up as an outspoken critic of Saied, who on July 25th sacked the government, suspended the legislature, and seized control of the judiciary, later moving to rule by decree in North African Union. Mazzarki, who was president from 2011 to 2014, informed anti-Saied protesters in Paris in October that Saied has plotted against the revolution and abolished the constitution. Days later, Saied accused traitors that seek refuge overseas of threatening Tunisia's sovereignty, ordered the investigation against him, and withdrew his diplomatic passport. Mazzarki responded that he was not concerned by any decision issued by the illegitimate authorities and also accused Saied of importing the Egyptian model of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who took power in 2013 after leading the military overthrow of former President Mohamed Morsi. Floods from heavy rains on Indonesia's main island of Java has slain at least 5 people and 4 others are missing, officials said in a report. On Friday, the National Disaster Mitigation Agency said that rivers on the slopes of Mount Arjuna overflowed their banks on Thursday, and their muddy waters flooded 5 hamlets in Kota Batu, a city in East Java province. The agency further said 15 people were swept away and 5 were later rescued. The agency chief, Ganit Wasito, said heavy rains are likely to continue increasingly until February, partly because of the La Nina weather pattern, where relief efforts were hampered by blocked roads covered with thick mud and debris. Mohari said authorities were still collecting information about damage and possible casualties, and they were beginning to evacuate people in affected areas to government shelters. Seasonal rains normally cause flooding and landslides in Indonesia, where millions of people live in mountainous areas or near fertile flood plains. President Xi said China is open to negotiations on subsidies to its industrial fame as all are state-owned companies, key points of trade tensions with the USA. China will take an active and open attitude to talks on issues such as the digital economy, trade and environment, industrial subsidies, and SOEs, Xi said at the opening of the China International Import Expo on Thursday evening in Shanghai. The Chinese leader said this is a country which will continue to open up and seek cooperation in international organizations like the United Nations and World Trade Organization. Going forward, China will lay more emphasis on expanding imports and pursue balanced development of trade, he added. Xi didn't directly address the state of China's economy following a recent slowdown in growth. Instead, he mentioned a number of policies to expand imports. Xi said that since China joined the WTO, 2 decades ago, the government of the world's second-largest economy has reversed thousands of rules and regulations, a move that helped to unleash market and social vitality. Harry Wang, president and founder of the Center for China and Globalization Policy Research Group in Beijing, said Xi used the speech to underscore how China's participation on multilateral institutions has powered it to make reforms back home. According to Wang, China is sending a strong signal that it would like to collaborate with the U.S. on WTO, to reform WTO, and to work with the U.S. on WTO. The U.S. and China are planning a video summit between Xi and President Joe Biden, the date for which hasn't been decided. The two leaders are likely to agree on reopening consulates that were closed during the Trump administration and on easing visa restrictions. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said earlier this week that China is expected to meet its commitment under the Phase 1 trade agreement, meaning the U.S. could consider lowering some tariffs in a reciprocal way, the latest sign of a tough bilateral ties. While Xi hasn't left the country for more than 650 days and skipped recent gatherings of global leaders in Rome and Glasgow, Beijing is positioning itself as a defender of multilateral institutions. China applied to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership in September, an Asian-Pacific Trade Pact once pushed by the U.S. but abandoned by former U.S. President Donald Trump. Xi also told the G20 meeting that China will apply to join the Digital Economic Partnership Agreement, a digital pact that covers Singapore, New Zealand, and Chile. Sudan military leader has agreed with the United States on the need to speed up the formation of a new government after he ordered the release of 4 ministers of the now deposed government, and this is according to the Sudan News Agency. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's office released a statement on Thursday after he spoke on the phone with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Al-Burhan's office said the two parties agreed on the need to accelerate the formation of a government. The two parties agreed on the need to maintain a part of the democratic transition, the need to complete the structures of the transitional government, and to speed up the formation of the government, his office said. The U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said Blinken in the call urged al-Burhan to immediately release all political figures detained since the coup and return to a dialogue that returns Prime Minister Hamdok to the office and restores civilian governance in Sudan. The United Nations has been trying to mediate on an end to the political crisis that followed the coup, in which top civilian politicians were detained and Hamdok was placed under house arrest. The UN Special Envoy for Sudan, Special Representative Volker Perthes, said talks had yielded the outline of a potential deal on the return to power sharing, including the deposed premier's reinstatement, but he urged an agreement in days, not weeks, before both sides' position hardened. The development came as the country's top general and former civilian leaders were locked in tense negotiations for a way out of the crisis sparked by the military takeover last week. On October 25, al-Burhan dissolved the transitional government and detained other government officials and political leaders in a coup. Hamdok, who was released within 2 days after his arrest and since kept under guarded house arrest, has been allowed to meet with UN and international diplomats as part of mediation efforts. The Gambian President Barrow on Thursday declared his candidacy for the December 4 presidential poll, with campaigning in the hotly contested election set to begin next week. Thousands of supporters lined the street in the capital Banjul as Barrow formally submitted his candidacy to the electoral body in the tiny West African nation. The December 4 election will be the first since the departure of former dictator Yahya Jammeh and is viewed as a key test of the country's democratic transition. Barrow told reporters, and I quote, "Whatever the Gambian people decide, I will respect that because I'm a Democrat and I believe in the true rule of law and democracy." Jammeh seized power in the Gambia in 1994 as part of a bloodless military coup. He was then repeatedly re-elected in disputed circumstances until he was defeated in December 2016 by Barrow, who was then a relative unknown. After a 6-week crisis that led to military intervention by other West African states, Jammeh was forced into exile by Equatorial Guinea. Rights activists has accused him of committing a litany of crimes during his 22-year rule, from using death squad to raping a beauty queen and sponsoring witch hunts, amongst others. However, the former dictator has retained considerable support in the Gambia, raising questions about his continuing influence in the nation of 2 million people. Meanwhile, 19 candidates have registered presidential bids so far, which the Electoral Commission must still approve. The morning after Diwali, the Festival of Light, residents of New Delhi woke up to a blanket of toxic smog and breathed in the most dangerously polluted air of the year so far. New Delhi has the worst air quality of all capitals, but even by its sorry standard, Friday reading was extra bad as people paid the price for celebrating India's biggest festival in the noisiest and most smoky way. The Air Quality Index, AQI, surged to 451 on a scale of 500, the maximum recorded this year, indicating severe conditions that affect healthy people and seriously affect those with existing diseases, according to the Federal Pollution Control Board's guardians. The AQI measures the concentration of poisonous particulate matter, PM2.5, in a cubic meter of air. Airborne PM2.5 can cause cardiovascular and respiratory diseases such as lung cancer, and in India, toxic air kills more than 1 million people annually. Every year, either government authorities or India's Supreme Court impose a ban on firecrackers, but the bans rarely appear to be enforced. Indian governments are often accused of not doing enough to curb pollution as they prioritize economic growth to lifting living standards in the world's second most populated country. On Monday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow that India will achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2070, but most experts reckon that the target was at least 20 years too late. 7 million people are at risk of becoming, 7 million people are at risk because of lack of water in Iraq, according to a recent report by aid groups in the region. Rising temperatures, low levels of rainfall, and lack of access to river water are increasing the danger of drought, which researchers warn. Climate change is one of the factors that has led to desertification and drought in Iraq, said Nasir Dara, a lecturer in geology at Salahaddin University. Diminishing water levels in the 2 rivers that feed Iraq are partly attributed to numerous dam projects upstream in Turkey and Iran, countries that in turn are facing increasing water demands from their own citizens amid the climate crisis. According to Dara, the discharge of water through these rivers that originated in Iran and Turkey is now increased by 50%. And on sports, Australia has postponed a first ever cricket test match against Afghanistan amid fears the Taliban group has banned women from playing the sport. Cricket authorities on Friday said that it has decided the inaugural men's test match to be played in the Australia city of Hobart this month will not go ahead as planned. Senior Australian cricketer has indicated that they would like to see the matches cancelled if the de facto ban on women's cricket remain in place. In a statement, Cricket Australia said it was committed to support growing the game for women and men in Afghanistan and around the world. Given the present uncertainty, Cricket Australia felt it necessary to postpone the test match until a later time when the situation is clearer. It further said it looked forward to hosting both the Afghanistan women's and men's team in the not too distant future. The loss of the Afghan test scheduled for November 27 creates a void in Australia Ashes build-up, which will be filled by internal 3-day match opportunity between the extended squad from December 1 in Brisbane. The squad will be selected and announced in mid-November, Cricket Australia said, adding that England will also play a 3-day warm-up match against the England Lions. This decision came after the report by Australian broadcaster SBS, which quoted a Taliban representative as saying cricket was not necessary for women. Meanwhile, Afghanistan men are currently playing in the T20 World Cup but have been warned they face an international ban if the country fails to field a side at the upcoming Women's World Cup in New Zealand. That is all for the news for today. From all of us in ECWA Television Africa, we wish you a great Friday and happy weekend. My name is Joyce. Take care of yourself.